that and see the red light come on.
Okay.
And
Good, thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the Okaloosa County Board of Commissioners meeting Tuesday, August 20th at 8:30 a.m. We'll begin this morning with an invocation by Pastor Bill Elwell and the Pledge of Allegiance by the EMS Honor Guard for Okaloosa County. Will you please stand with us?
Let us pray. Eternal God, we're grateful to be in Okaloosa County where the sun rises every day and people travel for miles to be here. And the sun sets in the most beautiful way and creates marvelous memories. We're here in this place for the Board of Commissioners, the basic form of government in Florida in this country, so that we may be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We pray for our schools and safety. We pray for our citizens today as they vote. We give thanks for those who put their names in the arena to be elected. And we pray for those who win and give them wisdom, and for those who lose. And may they, Lord, understand that they have participated in the greatest form of government on the face of this earth. Be with those who protect us while we sleep, and those who watch over us and protect us while we are about the business of every day. And may all the matters in front of this Board of Commissioners, O Lord, may they be for the good of this community, this county, and may they write a new chapter and a new story in our beloved history as we move forward. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Elwell from First United Methodist Church. Thank you for that invocation. And just so you all are aware, those are paramedics and EMTs that service our community right here in Okaloosa County. So I'm grateful for their actions on a daily basis. Mr. Hofstad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Just very briefly wanted to remind the board that our next couple of meetings, our September meetings, starting with September 3rd, are 3 p.m. in the afternoon meetings. They will precede our budget hearings. We have 2 budget hearings to approve the budget. Both of those budget hearings start at 5:01. So just wanted to remind the board of those meeting times. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Hoshihara.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I have no updates today.
Thank you. Clerk Peacock.
Just proud to be here, Mr. Chairman.
Sir. This time we'll enter public comments. If you have a desire to speak to the commission, you have 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes for each speaker. Speaker cards are available in the corner of the room. Mr. Tomelchek there will be glad to give you one and assist in filling that out. We'll begin this time of public comment with Shirley Godbold.
There we go. County commissioners and county officials, we appreciate the opportunity to speak before you. on an important matter. I'm providing this update to you on behalf of Dave Hensley. He couldn't make it today since he's performing bailiff duties at precinct 29, and I'm headed to vote when I finish. We have an update regarding the 40 acres Legendary Cove subdivision. We recently found out the property owner is working with an environmental contractor to conduct testing on the property. They're working with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection throughout this process. We received an update Monday from Mr. Scott Sweeney, Circle Manager. He stated they have received a draft report from the contractor and they'll be discussing it with EPA this week, which we need to do before releasing the report to outside parties. It's possible there may be more testing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Godwell. Brian Hornberg.
Morning, my name is Brian Hornberg. I live on Buck Ward Road, and I wanted to talk about the developments that are proposed and the county is planning on approving on Buck Ward Road, Arbor Grove, and Buckhaven. And in my view, and the view of a lot of residents there, we don't think those meet the requirements in the comprehensive plan and the land development code. And we went through the process to a petition for public hearing. We had our hearings, and in that process, we didn't realize until we got to our hearing after 3 months of this process that only specifics in the land development code could even be discussed. My understanding is that the comprehensive plan and the land development code must both be abided by the contractor, by the developer, that a development order must be consistent with both the comprehensive plan and the land development code. And we don't believe it is. It's not. They're planning on putting residential neighborhoods in the agricultural zone district on Buck Ward Road, and the residential neighborhoods are not consistent with the goal of the comp plan for ag zoned land. And so you're creating a situation where you're going to put residential neighborhoods in ag zone land, which is going to lead to turning ag zone land into residential land. And it's explained in the comp plan, it's explained in the state statutes that is not a desirable development pattern. It's not the intent of the future land use. That's not the goal of ag land. It's supposed to be zoned for 10-acre lots and agricultural use. And we know there's exceptions and there's some residential use, but the exceptions, there's an exception process in the land development code to go down from 10-acre lots down to 1-acre lots. We do not believe it meets that because it specifically says in the land development code that if you're going to have an exception down to 1-acre lots, it has to be frontage, have to have 50 feet frontage on a existing county or state maintained road. It does not. They are planning on building a road in the development and that will later be maintained by the county, and they're calling it an existing county road. It's not, and it's a way to work around the code to get things approved. And we keep seeing this again and again and again, and it's like we brought up a lot of concerns about traffic, about road conditions, about fire, about environmental, but even on the code specifics, everything is being ignored that we bring up. And we feel that we don't have a say-so in this process. But existing, we can't even agree on what existing means. In my mind, an existing road means it exists. It currently exists today. And they're saying, oh, it doesn't really mean that. It means some road in the future that we're going to build so that we can get around that and do residential neighborhoods in an ag district. And that is not the intent of the ag district. So thank you.
Bonnie Grundle.
Good morning. I'm Bonnie Grundle from Buck Ward Road. As you hopefully know, a big group of us were here on the evening of August the 8th for our petition planning meeting, and we were here for 10 hours. Well, 9 hours and 45 minutes. Yes, we kept them here till 3 o'clock in the morning. That was not our intent. We had a lot of issues to bring forth, and we did. Everything was knocked down. At the end of the night, I think we were blindsided. We didn't know that the developers have to follow county and state laws. We didn't know that the county would stick to their comprehensive plan and land development plan. We cited things. I have a handout for each of you. Very well done citations, pictures of Buckward Road and how it does not meet the qualifications. We didn't know that we had to follow laws as personal people of the county, but the developers and the county does not. It's unfair. We didn't know it's okay to have friends on this planning committee and not recuse yourself. We didn't know that to do business in Okaloosa County, you got to have a state license and a county license. Yes, that's true. The night of this petition meeting, one of the developers did not have a Okaloosa County license or state license. Guess what? As soon as it was pointed out, we wanted it to be axed, the whole thing. No, the county let it go through. The county planner said, it's not in the land development code. Continue on. He got on his cell phone and got his license that night. You can look it up. We didn't know that, as Brian said, the word existing means imaginary road. Existing is something that's there today. No, and I'm not talking about developers. Our issue is with the county, growth and management. The county is not sticking to the land development code or the growth plan. It's just not. We've cited it. I will give you a copy of this. Okay? What they were doing that night was just able to vote on, did the developers complete this checklist? One of the things on the checklist was a traffic study. Yes, each of the developers, one for Arbor Grove, one for Buckhaven, cited that they checked off the traffic. But did they do a concurrent traffic study? No, we're talking about potentially 1,000 new drivers every day living on Buckward Road. Buckward Road does not meet the minimal criteria for the county or the state of Florida. The width, the right-of-way, the angle of intersection of Old River Road and Buckward Road. It doesn't meet any criteria, but yet we're going to build almost 300 new homes. And it doesn't follow the comprehensive plan or the land development order. Those committee members only got to vote on, did they complete a checklist? We could not cite anything outside, but even when we did cite the land development code, they ignored it. So many points, almost 10 hours of deliberation. There was a lot brought up. Everything was ignored. We didn't know that having infrastructure in place was not important to the growth and planning people. Having infrastructure in place, as we all know in Okaloosa County, is so vital, not to just growth, but safety. Buckward Road is an unsafe road. It's been an unsafe road.
Thank you, Ms. Grundell.
Can I pass these out to you?
Sure. If you'll hand them to me, I'll be glad to pass them out. Clyde Lewis. Thanks. I'm going to change glasses, sorry. My name is Clyde Lewis. I live at 5763 Buckward Road in Baker. Regretfully, final development order was approved for the Buckhaven and Arbor Grove subdivisions on Buckward Road in Baker. This approval will double the current housing and traffic on a road that does not meet the minimum standards addressed in state statutes and county ordinances. I have a question for you. Please help me, help us as citizens understand why the state and county laws that citizens live by and give us protection do not apply to our county government. How can you disregard the law and approve these subdivisions on an illegal road? If you have no concept of what a narrow road looks like, that's the picture I just gave you. Those are two trucks on Buckward Road. The distance between those mirrors is 8 inches. In discussion with the county about Buckward Road, you get comments like, we cannot obtain the right of way. Since I bought my property in 1988, I have never been contacted. You also hear we cannot address an issue until the event happens. The event is already there. Average daily traffic on Buckhorn Road right now is somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 vehicles on this narrow road. By state statute and county ordinance, the road is supposed to be 22 feet. Buckhorn Road is less than 20 feet. Parking lots out here are wider than some of the lanes, some of the roadway on Buckhorn Road. During the development order hearing, committee member Mr. Beery raised the question multiple times, often in extreme frustration. Is there anyone considering the combined traffic impact on these two subdivisions? I realize this is not a developer issue, but it's a county one. The county has had zero comment. The discussions related to Buckhorn Road subdivision that same night was limited to only 3 of the committee members for various reasons. Disturbing highlight of the evening and that early into the morning was watching the chairman dozing off, going to sleep at his post during these discussions. He did regain full attention when it came time to vote. My question is, how can he vote on something when he wasn't attentive during the discussions? Bottom line, if you will not and cannot address infrastructures issues like on Buckhorn Road and bring them up to standards, then please consider not allowing these types of development activities. Unfortunately, 3 minutes is not long enough to go over some of this, but real quick. There's as an example, that night, it was brought up that the responding fire department has to be notified. The fire chief for Baker Fire Department was here, and he said that he has never been notified. There's more items on this list. Hopefully what I'll do with some of the other petitioners, we'll put together a formal letter and have it submitted to each of you. Thank you for your time. Yes, sir.
Carol Antun?
Mr. Chairman, items.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Carol Antun, and I'm the new Executive Director of Safe Connections Family Visitation Center. Sharon Rogers founded Safe Connections 27 years ago at Shalimar United Methodist Church with a donated space, volunteers, and not taking a paycheck. As of August 2024, we operate 3 supervised visitation and monitored exchange centers, employing only 5 people. With the passing of HB 385 in July, the Safe Exchange of Minor Children, we anticipate an increase in families needing court-ordered, safe monitored exchanges through Safe Connections. HB 385, also known as the Cassie-Carley Law, was enacted following the tragic murder of a young Navarre mother during a court-ordered child custody exchange. Approximately 88% of our cases involve domestic violence, and all of our cases involve at least 2 or more reasons why families seek supervised visitation and monitored exchanges. Before she retired, Sharon and I met with Captain Matthew Harrison and Judge Stone to discuss the best ways to ensure the safety for parents involved in domestic violence and children who are often under protection orders with identified safety concerns. We collectively believe that monitored exchange services at Safe Connections provide the necessary level of safety for such court-ordered child custody exchanges. I brought an overview of our Safe Exchange program, our parent handbook, a sample exchange report, and our court order that the courts use for monitored exchanges. We're fortunate to already have these services in place at all of our centers, protecting countless children and vulnerable parents from continued family violence. Securing a line item in the Okaloosa County budget will help us meet the expanding needs of this new law, ensuring the safety of children and parents living with domestic violence in our community. In the past year in Okaloosa County, we handled 97 cases involving 152 children and facilitated 709 supervised visitation and court-ordered monitored exchanges. And most notably, 97 to 98% of our cases are court-referred. Unfortunately, we had to let a part-time visit monitor go last year at our Crestview office due to funding. This reduction in staff has limited the number of cases we can handle, as one case manager now manages each office and supervises all visits and exchanges. We hope to reinstate this part-time position as soon as possible. 89.4% of our budget is funded through grants and contracts. In closing, we respectfully request a line item in the Okaloosa County budget to address the growing need for court-ordered, safe, monitored exchanges through Safe Connections. We're working towards greater sustainability within the community, now owning buildings in both Fort Walton Beach and Crestview. We're awaiting the results of the Impact 100 grant to make sure that we can move in there. Safe Connections has a long-standing presence in our community, and we continue to build on that legacy every single day by helping to keep children and parents who are living with domestic violence situations safe during their court-ordered supervised visitation and monitored exchanges. We respectfully ask to be considered for a line item in the Okaloosa County budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, may I?
Sure.
Thanks for coming today.
Yes.
Your service is so needed and so appreciated. And a lot of people don't know about the safety and how important this is. It's a national service. It's not just here in Okaloosa County. What is your total budget at this time?
$452,124.
And how much would you like to see in the county budget?
$50,000.
This is a legitimate concern and a legitimate question. I'm glad you brought this to us, and we'll look forward to working with this as we go forward. But thank you very much for your time today. And I'm sure you've spoken to the judges. It would be helpful if they also contacted the county commission for the need of this. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all.
Ms. Antoon,
Yes.
are you working in partnership with the sheriff and Judge Stone? I know they did a press release, I believe it was last week, about safe locations and announcing 2 new ones in the county. Are those in cooperation with your organization?
Yes.
Okay,
I
thank you.
believe so, yes. And my card's on all of that. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to give me a call at any time. Thank you.
Thanks. That's all I have for public comment. Was there anyone else from the public desiring to speak? Okay, moving to the consent agenda. Commissioners? Move approval. Commissioner Ketchel, do you desire to pull one? Number 1. If you'd like, we can pass it in total and then present.
That's fine.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify with aye. Aye. It passes unanimously. Commissioner Ketchel?
Thank you. It's my honor to present a proclamation that we just passed to designate September 5th, 2024 as Northwest Florida Military Officers Association Day. We have a number of those folks present, and as soon as I finish reading this, we'll make the presentation up front. Whereas the Northwest Florida Military Officers Association, that I called NMOA, was established in 1959 and is the local chapter of the Military Officer Association of America. And whereas the sole purpose of the MOA Association is to support and serve those who have served, are presently serving, or have shown an interest in serving in the military. Whereas the association's motto is never stop serving, and that I can say is true of every one of their members. Whereas Northwest Florida Military Officers Association is committed to serving the community through numerous community outreach initiatives, including Valentine's for veterans, Military Family Appreciation Day, E4 and below family gift cards at Thanksgiving, Veterans Stand Down, and Wreaths Across America. And whereas in addition to community outreach programs, Northwest Florida Military Officers Association operates a scholarship fund that provides annual scholarships to JROTC seniors graduating from our 7 local high schools and to college ROTC juniors and seniors who are on the track to be commissioned into military service. And whereas the Northwest Florida Military Officers Association is celebrating 65 years of service to the courageous men and women who have and will serve our great country. Now therefore be it resolved by the Okaloosa County Board of County Commissioners that we do hereby proclaim and recognize September 5th, 2024 as Northwest Florida Military Officers Association Day. And today we pass this. And so if you all could come forward, I can see many wonderful folks there. It's so good. Fran Hendricks, General Fran Hendricks, Carl Eschman, Paul Singleton, Dan Brown. There's a whole group of you.
As we move forward, commissioners, I would like to ask you to entertain the walk-on of an item for a resolution opposing a pro-abortion amendment to Florida State Constitution. We have guests with us, so I'd like to walk it on now if you so see fit.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Remember, we'll need a supermajority to be able to hear the item.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, has this been circulated already?
It has.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
All in favor signify with aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. So Florida Amendment 4, which will appear on the state's November 2024 ballot. It's an extreme proposal to legalize full-term abortion with no protections for the preborn child. A major issue within, and you can see it here, is that it takes away the opportunity of parental consent and makes it where parents are told after the fact, potentially, that this is what has happened. The resolution is before you. I can read it to you and then open for any discussion if so desired. Whereas a network of pro-abortion organizations, including Planned Parenthood and ACLU, have spent millions to garner the required number of petition signatures to place the pro-abortion amendment titled Amendment to Limit Government Interference with Abortion on the November 2024 statewide ballot. And whereas April 1st, the Florida Supreme Court has approved the language permitting the abortion amendment to be placed on the 2024 ballot to be voted upon by Florida voters. And whereas Amendment 4, if passed by the voters, will enshrine abortion on demand in the Florida state constitution by passing a legislative process, thereby removing the constitutionally delegated power of the legislature in their duty to prescribe laws equally criminalizing the murder of preborn persons as it already exists for postborn persons in Florida statute, while also preventing the executive branch of our state government from carrying out such laws as to safeguard the lives of preborn persons in our state. And whereas the wording of this proposed pro-abortion amendment, like age of viability, concerning preborn persons and health of the patient concerning the mother, is ambiguous and misleading to intentionally codify abortion on demand from fertilization to birth as a constitutional right. And whereas this proposed amendment to our state constitution would prohibit all restrictions on abortions before viability and create a broad exception to any healthcare provider could exploit to allow abortions up to birth, including when the child is capable of feeling pain. And whereas this amendment would effectively overturn current laws that require parental informed consent before a minor's abortion, making abortion the only procedure that could be performed on a minor without parental permission in the state of Florida. The amendment also removes other basic health and safety requirements for clinics that perform abortions and removes laws limiting public funding of abortion. Commissioners, I know this is not a policy issue that we have say in per the law. However, creating a resolution gives clarity of the statement of Okaloosa County, and I believe adopts the nature of who we are.
Chairman, I thank you for bringing this forward. I hadn't considered bringing it forward myself, so I'm grateful that you thought of it. It is the most egregious infanticide. It's really not abortion. When you get to the place where you can have a abortion, when you can kill a child the day before they're born, that's infanticide. We're better than that. There are parents, I know this because I was the director of Catholic Charity. There are parents on their knees every night begging God to give them a child to adopt. Please, we need to stand up against this amendment. Our own Congressman, Matt Gaetz, was the person who championed the current law, that's the law of Florida about abortion. It's where we are today is bad enough in Florida. We have one of the most restrictive, but to legitimize this throughout Florida, this is not what most people, I don't believe most people, not only in Okaloosa County, but in Florida, feel would be right to kill an unborn child the day before they could be born. That's just not the kind of people we are. And I know some people feel like, well, if you allow a little bit of this under the tent, we'll do the whole thing. But honestly, we need to take a stand. We need to take a stand and say this is wrong to kill a child. please do the right thing. And I'm for this proclamation because it says the truth. It is the truth that we shouldn't allow this kind of abortion in Florida. So I'm grateful to you for bringing this forward. And as the only woman up here that struggled to have my own children, I am so grateful for the two that I have. And I thank you for bringing this forward.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll vote in favor. I do want to just make sure I understand kind of the mechanics. So I see that I have a copy here in front of me, but was this emailed out to us in advance as a walk-on item?
It was not.
Okay, so it was a walk-on that hit us this morning, kind of on the dais. And what's the urgency in getting this adopted today? This is going on the November ballot, do I understand correctly?
It is going on the November ballot.
Okay, and so I guess just as a kind of housekeeping matter, preferentially for non-emergency walk-ons, I think the preferred methodology would be to give commissioners some level of advance warning that it's coming so that they can evaluate whatever the topic may be. So that would be my first note. My second note would be I do see that there's actually a staff recommendation associated with this. What was the process for acquiring that staff recommendation relative to a policy matter like this?
So that's just seeing the staff recommendation. I believe that may be an error. I'm bringing this. It wasn't tasked out to any staff.
Okay, so there's not been staff consideration. It's not been through a particular process with staff to recommend
We did
adopting
submit
the
it
resolution.
to Ms. Hoshihara for review.
Okay, fair enough. And then final question, Ms. Hoshihara, relative to my obligations of neutrality sitting on the canvassing board, am I clear to vote on this item? I guess I'm not, and the reason I ask is I'm not actually clear whether it's a policy opposition to encourage our citizens to vote in opposition to the amendment, or is this in fact opposing the amendment itself existing as a question to the voters on the ballot? I just want to make sure I don't run afoul of those legal obligations that I have.
Thank you for mentioning that. The resolution does encourage voters to vote against it. And since you do sit on the canvassing board, I do recommend that you abstain from voting on this issue.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Chairman, I'll register my requirement that I abstain from the vote for the reasons provided by the county attorney. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify with aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. This time we'll move into the public hearings. We have 5 public hearings on today's agenda. First is a quasi-judicial public hearing to consider a proposed future land use map amendment and rezoning. This time I'll turn it over to Ms. Hoshihara.
Great. Anybody here who wants to speak to this item, if you will please stand and raise your hand. Your items, great. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but?
I do.
Thank you. And commissioners, now would be the appropriate time to disclose any ex parte communications you may have had regarding this matter. Yes, Commissioner Ponder.
Yeah, actually, Elliot's here. Yeah, we had, I had a real estate agent who was trying to market a property close by this, and I reached out and asked Elliot what is, and I don't know exactly the full future plans of it, but there was no, didn't have sway my opinion. It was just fact seeking that I obtained and distributed to the agent. But that was it though.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hoshihara. Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman. We have from Growth Management 1 public hearing this morning, which is a small-scale comprehensive plan feature land use map amendment 55867-BCC-2024 and a companion rezoning 551872-BCC-2024 for parcel 15-1S 22-00000001-001D, which is located at the intersection of Lancaster Drive and Highway 20 in the general Blue Water Bay area. The property contains 25 acres more or less. You can see it sitting there on the aerial photograph. The request was submitted by Jeff McGinnis of Anchors, Smith and Grimley on behalf of the current property owner, the Okaloosa County Public School District. The purpose of the proposed amendment and rezoning is to facilitate the sale of the subject property by the school district to a private developer to enable the acquisition of a new school site in the Niceville area. There is no actual development proposal at this time. The request is to amend the future land use map designation of the subject property from institutional to mixed use or a more restrictive designation. And if the future land use map amendment is approved, to rezone the subject property from institutional to mixed use or a more restrictive zoning district. Properties in the institutional future land use map designation and zoning district, which is currently applied to the property, are intended to be used for public, semi-public, and institutional uses, ranging from parks and recreational uses to churches, schools, community and civic centers, hospitals, correctional facilities, utilities, solid waste transfer stations, landfills, and other public or quasi-public uses. The purpose of the proposed amendment rezoning is to assign to the subject property the mixed-use future land use and zoning designations in order to allow for the development of a functional and compatible mix of land uses that may include a variety of residential and commercial uses such as occur in the surrounding area. As you can see, what's around the property, the subject was bordered to the north by property bearing the medium-density residential and mixed-use flumes and zoning designations. To the south by properties bearing the low-density residential, mixed-use, and mixed-use 1 flume designations, with mixed-use 1 being the Blue Water Bay DRI. To the east by Highway 20 and beyond that, the Rocky Bayou State Recreation Area. To the west by the properties bearing the low-density residential flume and zoning designations. At this point, Commissioners, with your permission, I'd like to enter the remainder of the staff report into the record. So that's acceptable. The Planning Commission considered the public hearing, conducted a public hearing on the proposed future land use map amendment and rezoning during its regular meeting of August 8th, 2024. 5 citizens spoke in opposition to the proposed flume amendment and rezoning during the meeting. They expressed concerns regarding traffic, lack of sidewalks, stormwater management, safety, and light and noise pollution. 1 citizen spoke in favor of the proposed flume amendment and rezoning, pointing out the subject property no longer meets the school district's needs, and this is a good opportunity to use the sale of the property to enable the purchase of a property more suited. Staff also received an email from a citizen expressing concern over the lack of parkland in the area. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the proposed flume amendment and rezoning. The military representative of the Planning Commission was not at the meeting and did not speak or provide written comments or objections. Staff has no objection to the proposed flume amendment rezoning. If the Board of County Commissioners decides to approve the proposed future land use map amendment and rezoning, it should do so in 2 separate motions, beginning with the future land use map amendment. There are recommended motions in the staff report. At this time, that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Mr. McGinnis is here, as well as Dr. Bill Smith from the school board, if you have any more specific questions about their plans for the property and where they're going to move.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. As Mr. Kemper said, this is a request from the school board. We've entered into a contract to purchase acreage in the Deer Moss Creek development area. Based upon movement of population and changes in needs for schools, that area is more suitable for what the district sees in the future to build another school in the Niceville area. So we were fortunate enough to have this parcel that the district has owned for many, many years to use as an exchange as part of the consideration for acquisition of the other land. And therefore, because it's been owned by the district, it's been institutional all these years, and that needs to change. It will be in the hands of a private owner now. Mixed use is being requested because there will give more flexibility in what they decide to do with it. There is not a current plan by the party that we're exchanging with for the development of this property. And therefore, we're just asking your consideration to help the school district acquire the other piece. We need the rezoning and future land use changes to this parcel.
Have questions at this stage?
Ma'am, Mr. Chairman, just not my district, but I am just kind of curious. So is it's already under contract?
Yes, sir.
To sell? Okay. In the school district, did you just go through a public listing process, list it with a broker, or what was the process to get it under contract?
We identified areas where we think in the future a school may be needed. And obviously acquiring the kind of acreage we need for a school site, there are not that many options available.
I'm talking about the sale portion of this transaction. Is this parcel already, the parcel that's being, it's a swap? Okay.
It's an exchange.
I understood. Okay.
And as part of the consideration in that contract negotiation, we use
You
the
have to get
value of this together with other consideration to acquire the new piece.
Understood. Okay. And I think, and the reason really what I was driving at is I didn't recall there being any opportunity for a discussion with the county. I did know that it sounded like somebody had mentioned, park purposes in the opposition during the planning commission meeting. And I didn't know if the county had in any way looked at this parcel, under the lens of tourism development dollars or any other lens as to a viable use. It sounds like that may be overcome by events at this point, seeing as how the school district is in need of an appropriate parcel and a necessary requisite to get there is to provide this in exchange. So, okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. McInnes. We'll move to public comment. Ms. Renee.
Hi, good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, commissioners. A little nervous. This is my first ever county commission meeting to come to, but definitely being that I'm now a homeowner in my childhood neighborhood, actually, a little double vested here as both my mother and myself live in the neighborhood behind Lancaster. And so when you see the bright orange signs go up suggesting you go to a meeting, I guess you do. So unfortunately, I was not able to attend the August 8th meeting, but I was able to be a good citizen, play some catch up with some homework and read the notes and the minutes. And a lot of those concerns that my neighbors shared at that meeting, I also share. There's only one entrance and exit into the neighborhood. And so we've actually seen firsthand, unfortunately, there was a little girl in the last 5 to 10 years that unfortunately committed suicide, and it shut the neighborhood down for hours. And so we've seen firsthand what it's like when anything significant happens, being that there is only that one entrance and exit. So one thing that I would be very concerned about, there's also the drainage concerns. I've seen some of these developments that have gone up in Freeport that I believe the infamous developer D.R. Horton's done. They've had all of their drainage and flooding issues. And as a new homeowner, that's not something that I want to experience either. And so, I understand that a lot of these things that me and my neighbors are concerned about are things that, further along the line as the development comes along, you probably get a little more involved with. So just want on the record, care about it early on. But, I guess the part that I'm a little confused about is I'm not really understanding why we're going to just go ahead and get the rezoning out of the way now and figure out the development later. I mean, I guess in a perfect world, would we pitch some of these things like, hey, we're looking to put this residential neighborhood in, or this, shopping center or whatever it is, but before it was rezoned. I understand that's probably a little bit too perfect to ask for. And, realistically for business sense for Mr. McInnes and the school board and the land swap, they have to do something. But I would ask that maybe you consider something more restrictive than the mixed use. I mean, that's the most valuable zoning because a developer could come in and do whatever they want. They could go put in this low income housing. They could put in, a big shopping center with apartments on top. One of the ones that I didn't even think of until I read the minutes and the notes from the planning meeting was the noise and the light pollution, I think is the term. And so just please be mindful, it's not something I don't want to just go ahead and get the zoning over with. Yeah, sure, you get the best zoning ever and do whatever you want. And, a year from now, we're here crying to, whoever is in y'all's positions at that time. And it's too late because, we went ahead and gave the easy zoning. So thank you. I hope that any of that made sense and just really appreciate your time today and happy election day.
Thank you. Doug Davis.
Good morning. My name's Doug Davis. I live at 1700 Evans Court, Niceville, which is the property borders on the north center side of the large 25-acre property for consideration to be changed from a school board institutional use to the mixed use designation. Before I purchased my home, now over 26 years ago, I asked the realtor about the use of the wooded property next to me and that property behind me, which is this property in question. I was told the property next to me was zoned commercial, but was limited to such construction as professional office space and the like. The property behind me was designated as a school board property. This knowledge helped convince my wife and me it was a good choice to purchase our home because we wouldn't have to be concerned about the things that they could possibly build there. A lot has happened in Niceville over the last 26 years, as you can imagine. Based on some of the construction projects in and around Niceville over the past 10 years, I'm very concerned about the change of designation and future development of this large parcel of land behind our home. My concern is, will maintaining the character of our beautiful town be considered as this property is developed? In my opinion, the character of our area has already been diminished somewhat. We have been informed the property is being considered for change to a mixed-use development. I am hopeful that, if approved, this will translate into single-family homes, more professional office space like doctor's offices and that like, greenbelt areas possibly, and the like. However, I am concerned that it could mean something far worse for us homeowners that border the property, such as a huge apartment complex, another storage facility. Lord help us if another storage facility is built in this town. I would really be upset if another large Circle K or Sepco gas station is concluded for consideration. As the lady before me mentioned, another factor to consider before changing the property and developing it is there's only one road, that's Lancaster. One road in and out of that property, that whole area. Over the last 20 years, lots of homes have been put in there. Lots of homes. So I don't want to belabor my comments. I just ask that you keep us homeowners in mind as you consider how this land will be developed if it's changed. And but thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else from the public desiring to speak to this? Thank you, Mr. Davis. This time we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners?
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion. However, I would like some comments on the back end because several great things were brought up today.
I'll second for discussion. Go first.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. Actually, am I okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Renee did a great job. If that's your first time, you've got a bright future doing this to some more. Mr. Davis, thank you for taking time to come and being here. They brought me some, obviously I read this part of the package, and on the surface, it seems, very genuine, and it's a land swap. I got all that part, and they need the mixed use because that's what the land swap is calling for. My questions or curiosity would lean more into a couple things. The entrance in and out is in my opinion, is a big deal for just the growth development around there. I would think that's probably not compatible to a degree. So I don't know in terms of when we're looking into what the possibilities could be. That was number one. The second thing I thought could be, and I don't know if it could be limited or considered, but I'll call it a transition. There was a development done in Destin where an ideal property was taken, and what they did is they worked with the neighborhood and transitioned into that development so that it wasn't as intrusive or delights and things of that nature. So it was very compatible to the neighborhood around it. And so I don't know if any of that can be considered when you look at something like this. The green space, the park. Commissioner Bowles brought up a couple of things that I wrote down. A meandering trail of some kind. I don't know if what limitations or possibilities, if we just give them a blanket mixed use, are we just subject to then the extent and breadth of that? Or can we, because of this opportunity, say, hey, yeah, it's a good deal. We recognize we honor the school district and what they're doing because they're exploding at the seams as well. We need to make room for educating our youth. So I fully support that aspect of it. I'm thinking what they're leaving behind is a parcel that should have the development rights tied to it. So that part's fine. I just don't know, do we have any flexibility at the moment to say, hey, yeah, it's good as long as we can consider the entrance and exit, green space, and transition?
All the things that you've talked about, entry, ingress, egress, buffering green spaces. That is the province of the Land Development Code. And the issue we have two things. We have a legislative decision, which is the land use amendment, and we have the rezoning, which is the quasi judicial. And when you get to the rezoning part of it, you're in for a penny, in for a pound, because we can't do contract zoning. That's not allowed. So by going to the mixed use, and the school board's very upfront about it, you know, their client that they're wanting to do the trade with, they don't know what they're going to do in the future, so they're wanting to preserve flexibility. I think that if the board does not want to approve this as it's presented, if the timing wise, the client wanted to go back and modify the request to willingly come back and say, we'll do a strip along the western side there where it abuts the future, the single family. We could do that. Or, our recommendation is to change the Flumen zoning to mixed use or more restrictive. I don't know if you want to get into horse trading here at the legislative and amend the petition, to change what the request would be, to change it to recreation or something along the back 50 feet or whatever, westernmost 50 feet. Those are kind of things you could do, which would change the nature of what's been advertised, but it's done in the public hearing, and you can go to more restrictive if you want to. And of course, if the applicant agrees to that. That's not something that staff can negotiate standing here on its own. We'd have to, of course, hear from the applicant on that. So, if those are the concerns the board wants to address, if the applicant is willing to limit themselves today through this discussion, or if they want to go back, try to hammer something out with staff through the legislative process with the zoning to follow, we could do that as well.
Commissioner Goodwin. Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question. So, I understand your comment about contract zoning where you can't horse trade something the county wants in exchange for a rezoning. And maybe this is a question for you, Elliot, or maybe this is for you, Lynn. But I think we have the ability to consider imposing conditional rezoning. Is that correct? Or we can add additional conditions to the rezoning?
I do not believe so. And again, I'll defer to Lynn, but that's like contract zoning. We'll give you everything except you have to do X, Y, and Z.
Well, no, I think I've read a whole lot of contract zoning cases, totally unrelated to my job in this particular jurisdiction. And the crux of it seems to be, for instance, if you were to say, look, I'll change your zoning from low density residential to medium density residential if you'll put $20,000 in our artificial reef program. Versus, yes, we will rezone. However, because the peculiar nature of the piece of property, even though you didn't ask for it, we're going to increase your setbacks and buffers by 10 feet. Is that not part of the tools that we're allowed to use when we consider flume and zoning changes?
I have never seen anything applied that way. It's the only way traditionally, I guess, for lack of a better word, you see that done is when you have a PUD process where that parcel itself almost has its own zoning unique to it, which is done through a specific ordinance creating the PUD as part of just a straightforward rezoning to say, we'll rezone you, but you have to have additional setbacks and things like that. I have not seen that done. And I've never read anything where it says that can be done. Maybe Ms. Oshihara is aware of something I'm not.
And fair enough, I sprung it on you. So didn't have the chance to sit down with you kind of in the office before the meeting to talk about it. So in all fairness, I appreciate your answer on that. I'll tell you kind of my perspective on this. I guess we're actually in argument at this point, or discussion rather, because motion and a second. I certainly want to partner with the school district and help them move forward. I understand they're looking at, I think, Deer Moss Creek. They're probably got to deal with Ruckle Properties. That's not supposed to be relevant for this consideration, but I bet that's who they're dealing with. I haven't seen the contract. If it's in the packet, I didn't see it. I don't know that it is.
It's not.
And it probably has some different contingencies. My goal is not to mess up their process. And I don't know if they're up against a hard deadline. Mr. McInnes could probably speak to that, or if there's some flexibility and due diligence where, you know, they can continue working with the property owner. But all that said, I don't want to mess the process up, but I'm very, I'm very cognizant of the concerns of the neighborhood surrounding the property. And so, kind of like, I think Commissioner Ponder was talking about, is there a way to kind of slice this where we have some, maybe transition it into some protections? And I understand mixed use is designed to be a transition zone. I get that. However, mixed use gives you, subject to some different things. I mean, all your C2, all your C3, and those sorts of things. So I think the property can be changed on the future land use map and rezoned to a way that will make the property compatible with what's there. Understanding it's a big piece. This is not like a 2-acre parcel. So there's going to probably be more than one type of use that the owner will want to do here. And I suspect there's a way to make that work. But I feel like maybe we have more tools available, or I'm not sure exactly what tools I have available. I'm almost of the mindset that today would not be the day I'd want to vote yay or nay on it. I'd rather step back, not blow the deal up, work with the applicant, let them work with their I guess buyer or property acquirer, and then give us a chance, maybe even one-on-one with staff. I don't know if that creates a problem because this is QJ, but to kind of talk through what are those tools available, because it seems to me there's a way to do it that doesn't harm the neighborhood, that makes the 25 acres economically viable for the applicant to trade, and we can get all that done. But I just worry that just a broad sweep 25 acres of mixed use. And look, I know if I'm correct at who's buying it, I don't think they'd ever complain about the type of things that are built. But this thing could get sold to somebody else from out of town that we don't know. And I understand that. So I just, it's just got, I don't know. I'm talking too much. I guess I'm just saying I'm not ready to pull the trigger today. I want to keep working with them, figure out how to make it work.
Thank you. Commissioner Ketchel.
So Commissioner Goodwin said it more eloquently than I did, or could say, but thank you. My second was made with discussion. I also want to thank the two that were here. I'm sure you represent 200 more that couldn't be here. So thank you. I very much feel the same way, that I would rather table this than go forward with something half-baked. I would like to look at egress and ingress. That's very important, not just for the recent, in my own neighborhood, which also has one road, we had a swimming pool blow up. Somebody put the wrong chemicals in, and we couldn't leave for hours, same kind of thing. So that's an important issue in a neighborhood. Green space, walking trails, that's legit. Everybody wants this today. People do not want more storage units or apartment buildings going up when they have single family homes. So we need to pause here, look at this as a legitimate way to develop. I'm hearing this not just from the north end, but it's with any parcel we have left in Okaloosa County. We need to do better planning. It's not whoever gets to the bank first. It should be, let's put it in the code, what can and cannot be developed. I want that. I think I'm seeing nodding out there. This is what they're saying they want as well. So I'm going to withdraw my second.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, so a couple of thoughts. One, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but we do have to be careful. While I appreciate, one of the speakers' concerns about it would be preferable to know, show us your plan first. That I think state law actually doesn't require that or even necessarily allow for that. We're not able to mandate the development plans in exchange for consideration of the zoning. So we have to take the zoning district, the allowable uses within the requested district, and its compatibility, for example, under the flume request change with adjacent properties. In its isolation, I can say that mixed use, which allows for some level of residential and commercial development, is probably not inconsistent with the neighborhood, seeing how it is both adjacent to residential and commercial uses. And so, in its just kind of isolation, I think the request is completely reasonable. I think for my friends at the school district, it becomes a little bit more complicated because the current zoning of the property is institutional, and it's owned by local government, and that signaled to the adjacent community a certain set of expectations relative to that property. And I do think those matter at the end of the day when we consider whether or not to grant changes into those underlying districts. And so if we were going from commercial to mixed use, or even privately owned residential to mixed use, on a major highway corridor, frankly, for me, the analysis would be significantly different. And so I think what I wish, and this is just hindsight, I wish that our friends at the school district had perhaps reached out to the county to have a conversation about a parcel of this level of significance, given its adjacency to established neighborhoods within this community, given its adjacency to a really, really critical water body and adjacency to a state park facility. It would have been helpful, I think, for us as we were kind of having this decision put in front of us to have had an opportunity for, at some level, whether through the administrator or the commissioner whose district this lies, to have a conversation about what the school district was planning. Having said all that, it's the school district's job to make sure there's adequate supply of schools to properly educate all of our children. That's not our problem. We don't collect the taxes for that, and I'm always glad to refer citizens back to my school district member when they have a concern about school capacity. And so I certainly don't want to hamstring that, but I'm tracking the line of thought with my fellow commissioners that I think it might be good to punt, and wanting to be differential to Commissioner Ponder, it might be a good idea to punt and recommend that there be some dialogue at some level over the next couple of weeks to see if there is an opportunity to kind of reevaluate that transaction in a way that doesn't, as Commissioner Goodwin noted, doesn't sink the deal, but maybe is a way for the county to even participate in the deal. So things I'd be interested in knowing: what is the park, what's the local park or recreational capacity for folks that live in that neighborhood? Maybe there's an opportunity for the county to acquire, the back portion of this property, a couple of acres for some passive use recreational development, which would effectively serve as a buffer and still allow for some pretty robust development of the primary or core portion of the parcel. I think there are ways where we may be able to do this even without having to kind of surgically attack property owner rights. And it may be, and I'm guessing if the party to the contract with the school district is who we think it probably is, I'm guessing they'll be amenable to at least entertaining the conversation. And I think that is in part because there's some significant value to the long-term development of their primary community to have a school facility located therein. And so I suspect that they're going to be willing partners at the table for that discussion. So if the effort here is to table to a time certain, I'm certainly supportive.
Mr. Ponder.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate that. Yeah, part of the bringing the motion is to have the discussion to see where we went and flexibility and what's possibilities. I really appreciate both constituents coming and voicing their very, very realistic and practical concerns about potential impacts. And smarter people at this table said it way better than me, but I think the right course of action is I want the school district to stay on target on trying to work something out. However, I would like to table it and have those discussions and have it brought back at that point in time. I think it's what's honorable to the neighbors, hopefully honorable to the potential land swapee or whatever right person is there. And it also kind of gets us a clearer picture of possibilities. So I'll remove my first to table. I don't have a time certain, Mr. Chair. It'll be up to staff.
I think we should move to a time certain within this.
What is, or Elliot, how much time?
Logically, it would go to the second meeting in September if that timetable works for the applicants. Since it's a South County issue, and we try to do them in the South. So the second meeting in September.
September 17th at 3 p.m. or sometime thereafter.
Let's maybe hear from the applicant.
Obviously, we will work with the commission however we need to. There is a closing time frame set for, I believe it's early October. So if we're pushed to the end of September, we're going to have to reconsider this contract. I don't have any ability to discuss changes or amendments. I'm going by the contract that the board has approved, and the contract called for this rezoning and this future land use change. One of the things I want to be very careful about is the school district has appraised this property, and there are values involved in this contract transaction with the exchange. If things begin changing at the county level that devalue the property, it's going to change the business transaction for the school district. And obviously this land is being used as a large part of the cash financial side of the purchase. So we have to be careful on our end of it that changes don't start affecting the business side of the transaction.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify, so if I'm understanding though, and to be perfectly fair, that this county is a participant in establishing that value mark insofar as that value is, I'm betting, having not seen your contract, subject to the approval of the requests that are in front of us today. In other words, that the contract does not require the exchange to continue by the other party if this flume and rezoning request is not made, given that probably an institutional zoning is likely to be less valuable than a mixed use zoning. Is that correct?
Well, the issue with the institutional is a private developer can't do anything with institutionals.
Which would make it pretty much not
And
very
so
valuable.
therefore, and it's very valuable land. And therefore, that's why the contract contains that contingency.
It is very
If not,
valuable
you're
land.
asking the school district to sit there and say that, 25 acres at Blue Water Bay can only be valued as institutional, and that would hamstring them and their abilities to use that public asset at its highest value to get another school site in Niceville.
The point is completely understood, and I think in reverse, its value is subject to the allowable uses thereon, making this board, I think, a necessary party to that process, and one that I hope the school district will welcome some at least discussion to help ensure that we are working in the mutual best interests of our citizens across the full spectrum, not just educational facilities for children, but also quality of life issues for folks that live in those neighborhoods, including the kids that are the constituents of our members on the school board.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just a quick question, understanding the timing, and Lynn, you might have some thoughts on this. Would it be a reasonable approach to set the date and time certain for our next meeting, understanding it's in Crestview and understanding it's not a full month away, but that would then give the opportunity, if staff in the school district and the property owner are able to work quickly, they could bring something back then. If not, we could then again table again to another date certain, right? But at least then we would have the opportunity to address it in 2 weeks, understanding they've got an October closing. Just a thought.
The board certainly can do that. And the reason for tabling to a date and time certain is so that they don't have to go through the re-advertising. But you're absolutely right. You could table this for the September 3rd Crestview board meeting at 3 o'clock or sometime thereafter. And there's nothing that prohibits you from tabling it again if necessary.
Consensus or motion? Okay, so need a motion and a second for
I'll
that.
make a motion to table it to the first meeting in September, time is 3 p.m. or soon after.
Okay. Second by Commissioner Ketchel. Any further discussion?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair. For Renee, Mr. Davis, just so you realize that meeting, for the sake of trying to work with all the parties, it will be in the Crestview meeting. It won't be in this meeting facility, just so you're aware what we're doing. Okay, thank you. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, not in the morning.
All in favor, signify with aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. So it's tabled until September 3rd.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. The next public hearing is to consider an ordinance amending the granting of ad valorem tax exemption for Gulf Air Group. Mr. Sparks will be presenting this matter. You should do it quickly. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Nathan Sparks, 1 Okaloosa Economic Development Council. Happy to be before you this morning. And I've got an item to start with here that is something that came before you in March. At that time, no action was taken, but I have to say, I think we've made tremendous headway working with each of you, working with Mr. Coffey, working with the county attorney's office, and working with Mr. Stage to end up in a far better place with this particular recommended amendment to our existing economic development ad valorem tax exemption ordinance for Gulf Air Group. Just for the record, Gulf Air Group committed in 2022 to create 55 new jobs and construct a hangar and facilitize that with new equipment. The total investment is $16 million. The average wage of these 55 new jobs is $89,000 a year. This is in addition to the 102 jobs that they currently have. In there, here are the issues that we identified. The one that I brought before you in March, the application that they submitted at the time that we began discussions and negotiations with them stated that their first jobs would be created in 2025 because they allowed for time to construct the hangar that would house these positions. But the ordinance that was approved, unfortunately, started in 2023, well before the hangar was finished. In fact, the hangar is still under construction as planned, and it will be completed in March. In fact, if you've been up there recently, you see a lot of progress being made. So the ordinance started 2 years before the hangar that was going to house the jobs, was to be completed. So that was the first issue. The second issue is that the approved job creation schedule in the E-Date agreements did not align with the job creation schedule in the airport master lease. And so that was the issue that led to this issue being tabled in our March discussion, as you'll recall. And so we've had great discussions since that time, as I mentioned, with all parties, including Mr. Stage. And we have gotten agreement from the company to align the job creation schedule with the master lease job creation schedule. So essentially, what that means is that 25 of the jobs, the 55 that are created, will be have to be created within 30 days of the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. Right now, that certificate of occupancy is on target to be issued in March of 2025. So April 20th, to be exact, of 2025 is when those first 25 jobs have to be created. Then the remaining 30 jobs have to be created within 5 years of the lease effective date, which will take us to March of 2030. The new revised agreement, now signed by the company, matches with the airport master lease. The new supplemental application matches the airport master lease. And the total value in terms of the economic development ad valorem tax exemption has not changed. It's still over the full 10 years, $327,718 based on the values they provided for their investment. So that's where we stand with this. And I'm, of course, happy to take any questions that you may have of me.
Sorry. Need to open for public comment if there are any. I have no speaker cards. All right. Seeing none, close the public hearing. Commission? Motion. A motion by Commissioner Ponder. Second by Commissioner Goodwin. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Passes 4-1. Next public hearing is to consider an ordinance amending the granting of ad valorem tax exemption for Project Sound. Mr. Sparks will be presenting this matter.
Thank you, sir. Another economic development ad valorem tax exemption revision to an ordinance proposed today. Project Sound is a confidential prospect that we've been working with for about a year now. In fact, I was last before you last October. And at that time, the company was planning to move forward with making a decision by the end of last year, early this year. There have been some things that have changed relative to their timeline, and that's why I'm before you today. Specifically, this company, just a quick recap, they are planning to initially lease a portion of the Okaloosa Technical College North facility, which will be located adjacent to Bob Sykes Airport. They will be in phase one creating 44 jobs. Those jobs will be between $76,000 and $91,000 a year average, which compares very favorably to our $55,000 a year average wage. The investment that they anticipate is $2.415 million. And remember, this is an undersea weapons systems manufacturer and systems engineering firm supporting the U.S. Navy. So the delay had to do with the federal budget. We all remember that the federal budget was approved through continuing resolution. And basically that continuing resolution did not have any new program money in it. And so when the final federal budget was finally signed in March, the company was well behind the curve because they've been waiting for this process to play out. So they came to us and to Triumph and other participants in this particular transaction and said, we would very much appreciate it. We're still very committed to moving forward with this project, but because of these unforeseen delays, we now need an additional year in order to make this work. And so essentially what they've asked is if we could consider reauthorizing the approved ordinance from last fall, and rather than having the job creation schedule start in 2024, basically as originally planned, they want to push it back so that it starts in 2025 and goes through 2030. So their plan would be to make their decision in the spring and then to stand up that facility next summer and create that first tranche of jobs by the end of next year, which would be in time for the 2026 tax year. So that is their plan. The total value of this particular tax exemption for the 6 years, keep in mind this is just 6 years because this is phase one of their facility. They plan to build something with Triumph Gulf Coast support later, as you recall. But this first E-date for their phase one would be $31,364 over 6 years. That's down a little bit because they have refined their investment schedule, their plan, as they've continued to work through this by about $50,000. Originally, the ordinance that you all approved was for $33,227. So now what we're looking at is $31,364.
Thank you. I have no speaker cards. Would anyone from the public desire to speak to this item? Close the public hearing. Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, well, did you want to get a motion out of the way first? Because I'm certainly not going to make it. So
yes, please. All right.
Second.
Thank you. Go
If
ahead.
I may, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Sparks, correct me if I'm wrong. The applicant in this project is a foreign company. Is that right? Or do I have that wrong?
The company is based in New York. They have been in operation for 30 years, more or less. They were acquired by a French entity, as you're recalling. But they do have a exclusive agreement whereby they can do business as a separate American-owned subsidiary with the U.S. Department of Defense.
So the profits will be repatriated to France. Commissioners, I'm pretty sure I voted against this project to begin with. It's you know, for a lot of reasons, I think have kind of come to the place where we need to take a different path as we look at how we handle these economic development incentives. You know, in this one, I'll note, here we are again, spending time and effort doing and then redoing these applications, which tie up Mr. Sparks' entity, which ties up our staff, which ties up legal, on the hope that maybe we'll get the opportunity to take some of our hard-earned tax dollars, which we shovel up to the federal government, which they're going to shovel back out via an appropriation. And in order to try and get some of our money back, we're going to give up some of our local tax base in order to do so. And to me, it just doesn't seem like a net win when at the end of that giant big circle, the profits thereof are actually going to be siphoned off and repatriated to France by the French owners of this entity. It just doesn't seem to me to be the type of project, or certainly the way in which Okaloosa County should be establishing long-term economic health and diversity within our community. And so for those reasons, and probably some others, I will vote in opposition to the request.
Any other discussion? All in favor signify with aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Passes 4-1. This public hearing, fourth public hearing, is to consider the county's proposal to self-perform the construction of Highway 90 East Water and Sewer Mains project. Mr. Hackett.
Mike Hackett, Water and Sewer. Good morning, Commission. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I am here to make a request for the board to approve OCWS to self-perform installation of water and sewer services along Highway 98 from Jericho Road all the way to the Magnolia Blossom subdivision which is just west of the Walton County line. In January 23, the county entered into an agreement with Crestview Mobile Home Village LLC for OCWS to install roughly 3.1 miles of water and sewer service to this development. As part of that agreement, the developer would pay for all material, equipment, and labor related to this project. It's expected to take about 4 to 6 months. There is one provision whereby the development only required a 10-inch force main. We would like to make that a 12-inch force main, so we'd be responsible for roughly another $250,000 to do that. It makes a lot of sense for future capacity concerns. But all funds will be to pay for the project will be provided by the developer. The developer will be required to purchase directly the materials and provide them on site. Once OCWS has completed the project, then we would be reimbursed for equipment and labor. This was notice for public hearing was in the Northwest Florida Daily on July 17th. And as of today, comments and inquiries from the public have not been heard.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hackett.
If you have any questions, be happy to answer.
Sir, would anyone from the public desire to speak on this item? Seeing none, having no cards, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners. Mr. Chairman, your district? Yes, sir. Approval of the self-performed work. We'll see about the future community. So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. The fifth public hearing, the last public hearing, is to consider the county's proposal to self-perform the construction of Shoal River Ranch, WRF sub-projects. Mr. Hackett.
Thank you. Yes, we're requesting your approval for 3 main sub-projects. Those sub-projects are first the site access road for roughly 1.4 million. The second would be the rapid infiltration beds at roughly 2.8 million. And then lastly would be the water main, sewer service, and conduit along the access road for 1.77 million. All 3 of these projects come in at just a little under $6 million, with about close to 3 million of that being materials. We think this is a good way for us to utilize internal resources to get a lot done to be ready for the main plant project, which has been bid. We expect a contract to bring a contract forward to this board on the September 17th meeting. At that time, we'll give a more in-depth overview of the project itself and the funding sources that we've acquired to be able to complete it. At this time, we would be working to be prepared so that the contractor can come on site and quickly get to work constructing the plant. Notice of this hearing appeared on July 17th in Florida, Northwest Florida Daily News, and you have that affidavit in your packet. As of yet, we have not received any comments or inquiries from the public.
Thank you, Mr. Hackett. Anyone from the public desire to speak to this item? Have no speaker cards. All right, seeing none, this time we will close the public hearing. Commissioners? Mr. Chairman, your district? It is. It's a great project for the county as an entirety. Moving in a great direction. I'm excited that our most valuable assets are able to, being the employees, are able to perform this type of work. It definitely keeps your department busy, but it speaks volumes of their quality of work. Move approval.
Yes. I'll just say congratulations for securing $33 million of the $50 million. That's a big deal.
It's a good start.
It's a good start. Very good start.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify with aye. Aye. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Department business, Mr. Parker, Transit.
Morning, Chairman, County Commissioners, Tyrone Parker, Transit Division. Have one item for consideration this morning, and that item is request approval and adoption of the final recommendations for the comprehensive operational analysis. Back in April of last year, Okaloosa County and Emirates Regional Council entered a interlocal agreement for general planning consultation through HDR engineering to complete a comprehensive operational analysis. During this analysis, established goals for the comprehensive operational analysis included a system efficiency and effectiveness, improvements to meet customer needs, and proposed system changes that will improve performance and rider experience. This analysis was presented to the Transit Co-op back in May of this year. Like I said, it was actually approved and recommended to bring this before this board for discussion and adoption. So it is my recommendation, like I said, or the Transit Division's recommendation to recommend approval and adoption of the operational analysis with guidance and proceed forward with execution for the final recommendation as proposed. If it's the chairman's, your acceptance, like I said, I do have the HDR consultant here to offer some further comments as well if needed. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I visited with Mr. Parker on this quite a bit, and I'm familiar with what the recommendations are, and so I'd be happy to move for approval. If I get a second for further discussion.
I'll second.
If I may, Mr. Chairman. I think that the look forward that Mr. Parker's department is taking is on the right track. There's still some work to be done, but I think they're making some great strides in implementing some new strategies to make the system more user-friendly, relating to the routes, relating to the scheduling, the timing, and implementing some things. And so I'm happy to support that. I will say, and I don't, and Mr. Parker, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure this is part of these particular recommendations, but I know something that your department's been looking at is the ability to take payments, point of sale other than cash.
Yes, sir.
And I think your buses have the hardware, and we just have to kind of work with both finance and IT to make that happen. So I don't know. That's not necessarily part of this recommendation, right?
No, sir, it's not.
Right. Something that I think that your department would like to be able to do. There's probably, a lot of lost opportunity there. So I just want to bring that up. I think the clerk's office is all about automation and tap to pay if you can do it and credit card. And so I think we've got the willingness of the partners. So I just want to bring that up because I can't talk to the board members about that otherwise. And since this is your item, even though it's not part of this particular recommendation plan, it's something that maybe the board would want to kind of get behind and say, yes, we give our consent to push that on through. It just seems like if you're going to get on the bus and you could have Apple Pay, let's take it. Or if you got a credit card, let's take it, especially if you got the hardware already in the buses. Anyway, not to get off on a sidetrack, but that's just something I think we ought to help you be able to get it done since you want to do it. And I think it just makes sense. Anyway.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
Are you suggesting that Mr. Parker come back to us as a progress report kind of as he moves in that direction?
I think that would be very, very helpful, and just kind of keep it moving along. So I think the chairman's recommendation would be a great one to.
Yes, sir.
Great.
I'd be glad to do so.
Commissioner Ketchum.
So I just want to say it was good to catch up with you recently on a staff level and find out all the wonderful things that are happening, including the new routes around Crestview. I know that Commissioner Goodwin has been your liaison this year, and I've missed being with you all. I am such a big believer in public transportation, and we had many difficult challenges when you came here, and you have really right-sided this, and thank you for your work as well. So continue to do well, and it's really such a small part of our budget anymore, and it's so well received by not only the disabled and aged, but many of the citizens who just want to ride a bus. I'm just very interested in that. And as our roads become more crowded, this is a way to reduce overcrowdedness and to get people moved around. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll certainly support the motion. I think the only thing I would highlight here, and I appreciate the advanced opportunity to discuss this, Mr. Parker. One of the recommendations coming out of the study is for looking at opportunities to expand coverage within the north end of the county. I think that is important. It was one of the things that has been kind of pushed on by the transit cooperative, and we had asked them to let us get to the opportunity of doing an analysis first. But now that that's complete, I think there will be some pressure for us to look very hard at that. So I trust, in addition to us, accepting and approving, this report, that we'll be looking to implement on that, and then to, I'll say implement in a fair fashion. The city of Fort Walton Beach and some of the other cities that we serve don't currently participate in the program financially. I think, frankly, it would be unfair to expect the city of Crestview to do so unless we're going to kind of revamp our entire model and expect buy-in from the cities. I would note this is a little bit different than the library cooperative model, where there are kind of mutual contributions, in that this is a service that we are providing to citizens without regard to whether they live in a city or they live in the county. And there's really no one kind of greater benefit to the other if we start to try and push these costs off in part onto the cities. That effectively citizens that live in the cities are just going to be paying twice for access to the service. And so I'm certainly not recommending that, but I am recommending that we maintain equity in however we build that model out. And then one thing I do want to note, that the way it was framed actually kind of gave me some initial heartburn relative to I forget the terminology now that was used, but kind of the point-to-point ancillary services, where, and staff was able to clarify for me, the recommendation is not that we kind of, as a county government, try and build out our own version of an Uber system, but rather it's actually to utilize some of those existing rideshare systems that are out there and find a way to weave those into our system to make our system more effective overall. And that I certainly do support. So, yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Parker, thank you. As has been spoken a few times, thank you for your time. It was good to meet with you and hear all the great things between you and Ms. Fitzgerald, what's going on in your department.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We have a first and a second. Any additional comments? All in favor, signify with aye. It passes unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Chief Weeks. Push the speak button, please. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
So I'm here to speak to you about our recent inmate medical services contract that just came up for bid this year. And our selection committee selected Morse Medical to fill that contract. We are very excited about that. There's a lot of substantial benefits that Morse is bringing to the table that we did not have before. To touch on some of those things, our medical director, which is our on-site physician, will be moving from 20 hours a week to 40 hours a week. Our dental will be moving from 6 hours a week to 20 hours a week. This will really help with the backlog, a constant backlog of inmate needing services, to be able to get us to more of a proactive stance versus a reactive stance on medical care. The Medical Assisted Treatment Program, the MAT program, this is the nationwide initiative throughout the nation on continuum of care for inmates coming into the facility who are already opiate addicts that are on medications to assist with those addictions, and we would have the ability to continue that care within the facility. Morse Correctional has firsthand knowledge in working with that MAT system, along with federal and state grants as well, and obtaining those for future savings for the department. That's my next slide there, federal and state grants. But Mr. Morse is actually also here. He's got a wealth of knowledge in obtaining and working through these federal and state grants for the MAT program. So we would expect, if these grants are obtained, to around $600,000 to $800,000 annually return back to the county. Let's see. They would also be adding in a MAT coordinator. So a coordinator position, someone who would assist in facilitating all of these MAT procedures throughout the facility. We are adding intake nurses that are specific to our intake process, which is fantastic. It's very needed. And then a recovery peer support specialist, someone who is also kind of a Dana Claw, right? Someone who's lived that life, has come out of it, and is doing well. Someone to come in and offer that extra level of support within the facility. We also we will hire on a full-time psychiatric / emergency trauma nurse practitioner as well. And this position will assist with all of our psychiatric staff with issuance of psychiatric medications. And then also this person will be partnering with our on-site physician, splitting their schedule so that we have maximum coverage for any on-site issues that we may have where we need a physician or a nurse practitioner. Also, one thing to bring into consideration is the correctional officer time that it takes for escorting of medical staff. This is going to cut down on a lot of those escorts to have more staff on site to do that. Also wrote into the contract, Morse Medical will be providing all correctional staff pre-employment physicals and drug testing as part of our contract at no cost to the county. That's great. And that's it.
Sounds great. Mr. Morse, thanks for being here today. Susan, thank you for being here today. Thank you for the work that you do leading the medical team there at the jail. Commissioners?
I have a couple questions. Sorry, I did want to note that the contract that's on the online agenda, I found a typo in the numbering of the paragraphs toward the end. So we have fixed that for the hard copy that's being signed, that if approved will be signed by the chairman. So just wanted to note that for the record.
Commissioner Ketchel.
You're doing a great job, and thank you for all the work that you've done, and certainly your staff. I have two questions that come up repeatedly. How quickly do inmates get the medication they were on or need once they're incarcerated?
It's actually pretty quick. We have an on-site pharmacy on site. So once they're assessed at intake, those nurses, as soon as they're brought in, those nurses assess them and find out what medications they're on, and that's immediately worked through our medical staff and then communicated to our pharmaceutical nurse.
So 24 hours, or is it?
I think it's less than 24 hours. Yeah.
That's one that comes up
within the first 24 hours.
And you still have, in addition to your nurse practitioner who's going to do intake, you still have licensed clinical social workers.
That's correct.
How many at this time?
Right now we have two. Well, we have one, and then so we'll have two. We have one right now.
Okay, and then the psychiatrist, the doctor will be online available 40 hours a week.
That's correct.
Okay, that's good news. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Walls.
Is this, I think I recognize some faces from my jail visit tour, but is this a new entity that's, the entity name is new to me?
That's correct. That's correct.
Obviously, I have faith in our selection committee. I do want to understand, I mean, is from a staffing standpoint, is this one of those where staffing is going to likely stay significantly the same as it is now? But
right. We are projected to retain all staff.
Okay.
The doctor.
Have we benchmarked relative to, other communities, cost per inmate per month for medical services, and how this contract, which is, as the details disclose, is getting more expensive? Have we done that?
Well, we have. I mean, I don't have those exact numbers with me now, but we're on track with what our partners around us are doing. The numbers are the same.
Okay. It strikes me as incredibly expensive, and maybe I have bad math, but if my rough math was right, it's somewhere between $600 and $700 a month per inmate for medical services.
That's
so
correct.
I'm trying to kind of reconcile that with the cost of insurance for medical care, which is, as we know, is high, but I don't think is typically $600 to $700 for an individual.
Right.
And maybe there's nothing we can do about that other than to just kind of make that note. As I struggle to understand how that math ultimately works out, where as soon as an inmate becomes incarcerated, all of a sudden the average cost of care becomes more expensive than it was pre-incarceration. So
unfortunately, you have a lot of folks in the community who can't afford health care. A lot of your homeless population. So if they have a tooth that's abscessed, a lot of times they'll go steal a candy bar so that they can come to the jail and get that tooth pulled. And that's just the harsh facts of it.
No, that's fair. And so I think what you're suggesting is really we end up becoming kind of the medical provider of last resort for many of the folks that are.
It's true. The second they walk in the facility, their medical needs are our concern, and we're mandated to take care of it.
And those that have maybe even gone untreated or unresolved now become our responsibility.
That is correct. That is correct.
Thank you.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
I'm sorry. Final, I appreciate the effort that we're going to try and find kind of offset funding sources. I do have some frustration with utilizing the inmate benefit fund. I recognize this is obviously a benefit for the inmates, but I think the original notion of those dollars, if I understood them correctly, was really for providing services to inmates that will, at the end of the day, kind of help reduce reincarceration rates, right?
Correct.
That should be the ultimate goal. And so if we are not careful and we allow those dollars to be diverted for just kind of required care purposes, while dealing with an abscessed tooth may be important, that's not going to keep that inmate from reoffending at the end of the day. And so commissioners, I trust we all kind of wrestled with that individually as we have to figure out how to close this budget gap. But to me, that's not a sustainable long-term way to fund this particular program within the facility, because it does so with the necessary displacement of other important programs that may help lower reoffending rates. Reoffending, that's not a word, is it, Mr. Autry?
I do, but what I would say on that is that a lot of these, what you'll see coming from inmate welfare, are what we're doing above and beyond what's required, and a lot of those things, all of those things are specifically psychological care, those types of things. So all of their salary would not be paid for out of inmate welfare, just that percentage that pertains to that to psychiatric care and treatment.
Which, let's be honest, probably should not be considered a pretty additional. It probably should be considered a core treatment when we're talking about trying to help people
Sure.
get back on their feet and get straight. So, right, Commissioner Ketchel?
Couldn't agree more. I wanted to say, I mean, as a social worker, let me just say, I can see people like grimacing when they hear about medical care. Medicare is for seniors. That covers everything almost, with you get a supplemental. When you're poor, you're on Medicaid. Medicaid doesn't cover anything hardly. So let's just say you've got a toothache that's going to take your life. Well, they will pull your tooth, but they will not save your teeth. They will not give you cavities, fillings, nothing like that for your cavities. So, I mean, our system is really messed up. It is messed up on a federal level. It's messed up on a state level.
Correct.
And we inherit that mess with people who end up, and remember that 75% of the inmates that are in our jail have not been proven guilty. They're awaiting trial.
That's correct.
So we're just dealing with the mess that we've been handed. I'm just saying that because there's people listening going, oh my God, they're letting them go to jail just to get their teeth pulled.
Right.
There's a lot more behind this story. Okay. I just need to say that for the public. I hope as we go forward to move a new jail, to build a new jail, that we really seriously look at the mental health unit, because so many people that end up in jail are mentally ill.
Yes, ma'am.
So could be a diagnosis in itself. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. New business, Clerk Peacock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you for putting this on new business on the regular agenda, so I get a chance to get up here and tell you about a program that has been important to me in the 10 years that I have been your clerk, and that's the Law Library. The Law Library is funded from a portion of an additional fee on top of criminal cases in the county that also pays for 3 other programs, including judicial innovations, the teen court program, and legal services that support our indigent community that needs legal representation. The Law Library, and certainly we'll go back when I first started, and myself and Commissioner Boyles were on the board. The board is created by statute and enacted by you creating an ordinance several years ago. And there's a commissioner on there, the clerk by ex officio. There is the administrative judge of the county is on there, as well as two private attorneys that provide that fill out the board. And of course, when I started with Commissioner Bowles on the board, I will tell you at that point, the program was not a valuable program for our community. It did not provide a service that I could see, and I certainly think that Commissioner Bowles agrees with me on that. Moving forward, I had a vision, the court and the team had a vision to get us to a place where that program, the law library, provides a valuable service to our citizens. Today it is. And when I came to you back earlier in the year to tell you that the dedicated funding stream may not get us through the year, I talked to four of you that are not on the board with me. I was not allowed to talk outside of the board meeting with Commissioner Goodwin, but I talked to the four of you to explain where I saw the value of the program and why I saw the need for the potential of general fund reserves to backstop the revenue stream, because we saw a potential deficit into the end of the year. And all four agreed with me. I think I had one commissioner that said, well, up to a limit. That was $20,000. However, I'll give you a quick report right now on the finances. I do not forecast needing any dollars from the general fund reserve to get us through this year. That's based on decisions of the board from a management perspective to cut the hours of the employee back to a 32, that allows us to continue to perform the services, the valuable services it's doing, as well as not needing revenues outside of the revenue stream. But I did want to tell you why I see the program as so valuable, since I've got a minute to tell you. Today, and through this year to date, for the fiscal year, we have served, that law library has served 1,133 different people that needed access to the resources of the law library. And when I say resources, the clerk is the front desk to the court system. The judges, the attorneys, they're all parts of the system. But when a citizen needs to interact with the court system, they come to my desk and say, I need to do something. One of the problems that we have with my clerks in different parts of the system is I cannot give you legal advice. My deputy clerks cannot give you legal advice. So when somebody comes into my counter and they know they have to interact with the court system and they don't know what to do, I cannot tell them that. There's law. As a matter of fact, I would be breaking the law. It's not just I'm not supposed to. It's breaking the law to give them legal advice. And so my clerks are wanting to help our citizens that need to do something, but we can't tell them what to do. Once they know what to do, we can bend over backwards to help them get through the process. But they have to know what they want to do. So that's a problem. What do we do if they come to our counter and they don't know what to do? We can't say, sorry, can't help you. That's what we have to do now, before the law library program got to this point. What we would say is, we can't help you. What they would then do is get on the elevator and go to the third floor and go find the judge's office to try to ask the judge or the judge's assistant what to do. The judges and the judge assistants can't tell them what to do either. And so we had a problem. Who do we send them to do? And you got citizens frustrated. They don't know what to do. They know that it's going to cost them dollars if they go find an attorney to ask. So the law library has provided the service through a couple of programs. First off, they give them access to legal resources like Westlaw and some other things, legal books. But one of the big programs in the last few years is this Ask a Lawyer program. So in effect, I come to the counter, I don't know what to do. We say, if you'll go to the law library, they'll schedule you for a 15-minute quick little conversation with a lawyer that's volunteering their time to talk to you, to sort of figure out what you're trying to do, and they can give you a hint on what you need to go do. It may be you need to go hire an attorney. It may be all you need to do is follow these forms and go get them done. That's what they call a low proto system. There's a nominal amount that they pay for that to make sure that people show up. It's very nominal, and really it's out of the goodness of our bar, our Okaloosa bar, who provides attorneys that want to support this program. Year to date, that program has served 258 different individuals. That means that's 258 people that did not know what to do in our system, had a resource to go to without just going out there and being frustrated that they can't interact with the court system. So it's a very valuable program. And I certainly see it. We have come a long way, Commissioner Boyles, in the 10 years that I've been here on how valuable this program was. So fast forward to this point, because of a long-term employee that provides the service in that organization, the revenue streams have not kept up with the cost of doing business because it's a single employee kind of organization. And so there's a potential based on the number of cases in the county for criminal cases that we may have a deficit year to year. We are not overspending the budget. We're, as a matter of fact, significantly under the budget. We've never had a problem with even coming close to overspending the budget. Our problem is overspending the revenue stream, and therefore we need a backstop. We're not allowed by statute to utilize the other three chunks of dollars in those things like judicial innovations or teen court. We can't use those dollars. So effectively, the backstop is the county's general fund. And so, given that I'm probably the smallest chunk of dollars asked today on the agenda, and quite frankly, it's a $20,000 commitment. However, I'm forecasting we will not need any. Main reason I wanted to sort of expound upon the concerns is this will be a continuing problem as we move forward. Your law library board has done a good job of trying to manage expenses, try to find ways to continue to generate revenue. The law librarian is now a notary, so that she's able to provide notary services. It provides a fee into the system for financials. We do copies, and she charges for copies. So we're looking for different things. I feel like it's well managed. I feel like it's providing a valuable service to our citizens today. And so getting a commitment from the board to backstop it, no more than $20,000, certainly this year, I don't think you'll need it, but understanding that's a request that would need to go through the budget director and Mr. Hofstad, understanding that would be a commitment for more than just this year, unless there would be a major change to the program. But I will certainly tell you that it is a valuable program, and I don't know what we would do if we didn't have it to tell citizens what to do. Because when I tell them I can't help them, they're going up the stairs and start knocking on the judge's doors, and they have to tell them the same thing. So anyway, I'll leave it there. Thank you for time to tell you about the program. My request is that you will up to a limitation backstop it should we need the dollars at the end of the fiscal year. I do not anticipate at this point.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Just a clarification, Lynn, there's no issue with me discussing this, even though Clerk Peacock and I sit on a separate sunshine board since we're
in a publicly noticed meeting. Yes.
Okay. I just want to make.
I asked the same question. Yes.
Got it. Yes. I just like to be extra.
You may discuss it in this meeting.
Okay. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
I'll say, the law library board has, struggled to try to stay within, not just within budget, but within revenues, I think is the real issue. Making some adjustments to scheduling and FTEs and things like that. At the same time, trying to increase alternate sources of revenue because, the primary source being, a fee derived off of particular case filings, and that's outside the law library's control. So that said, I think I'm generalizing, what an $89,000 budget a year.
Yes, sir.
It's probably, we spend quite a bit of time talking about that budget with a lot of, some volunteer time from some of the private lawyers that participate in that. And, this I think is a reasonable request as a commissioner. I think it's reasonable, given that there's a good chance it won't even need to be tapped. I don't know if it's appropriate time to make a motion, but be happy to move that we approve as requested.
Thank you. Second by Commissioner Ponder, and motion by Commissioner Goodwin. Commissioner Boyles?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of thoughts. I'll support the motion today. Honestly, primarily, kind of out of my trust in, Clerk Peacock and Commissioner Goodwin. I will say, my time on the library, the law library board led me to conclude that it was not a valuable service, as the clerk noted, in the way it was being provided to our citizens. There's been a lot of evolution in the way people receive their information. And so the world has just changed from when I think the statute was created, and law libraries used to be really important. And frankly, they used to be really important to lawyers back before the days of Westlaw and all of the other services that are out there to provide access to legal resources. And so it's just a different world than it used to be. I still maintain that the model is outmoded, relative to the modern world, and that a change, probably a more significant change, needs to happen. I kind of reconciled that wasn't going to happen on my watch, and I'll have to leave it to somebody else. But I still think that change needs to come. Quite frankly, Clerk Peacock had some pretty innovative ideas early on while I was on the board. And one thing that I can say now, that I'm a lame duck and the clerk's a lame duck, and the judge that was on that board at the time is no longer on the bench. If you ever wanted to see, the full tension of separation of powers at play, a couple of those meetings definitely allowed for that opportunity. I wasn't sure that wasn't going to have to get in between a certain clerk and a certain judge at some point along the way, at least once. But it was because everybody was well intentioned and wanted to see the best possible result come out of it. So again, if you do the math, I still kind of question. We could probably just pay for individual consults with borrowed attorneys for every customer that comes through the door and still be money ahead. But again, that's not the model and constraint that we have to work with. So we'll do the best to provide the service we can within the constraints of the statutory model as it currently exists. And then hopefully someday, maybe upon a retirement of an employee, there'll be reconsideration of the entire model itself. And maybe that could include our really robust library cooperative, or maybe it will include some additional resourcing within the clerk's office. Who knows?
Mr. Chairman, if I may follow up, any passion between the members is based around serving our citizens. There's certainly some passion on my part, and as well as others. And at the end of the day, it's trying to look out for a valuable service for our citizens that walk in and need us to help them navigate government and the court system.
Thank you. I still think the future lies in a partnership with the library co-op, with kiosk, and potentially a call-in service. But
I will leave it to you after
where we are now. I just don't.
After I'm gone.
No, sir. So
I just want to say that, when citizens are faced with legal questions, it may seem so easy to the attorneys up here, but a lot of people are they don't know where to turn. And you see that when they come to your counter. So I think in some ways to have a law library with a person there is a very good thing. More than we probably realize. It's very difficult to go into court pro se, which means without an attorney, because you don't know what you don't know. And that's why we have doctors that treat us. We have attorneys that understand specific areas of law. So I think this is a legitimate service, and I'm glad we have it.
Thank you.
it's amazing how you see some of those doctors now via your own cell phone. So it's interesting to see what will come out over time. But any further discussion? All in favor, signify with aye. Aye. Passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, if I might take some privilege, I will note that you were sent, and I meant to tell you this in my minute, that you were sent the investment report here recently from our CFO, Ron. And you'll note that this year we have collectively across all investment sources brought in about $15 million across everything. I don't know the breakdown to general government dollars versus some of the other enterprise funds, but it has been a fairly good year for return. I know that Commissioner Ponder had mentioned this in the past, so I wanted to make note of that and how the clerk's office manages those resources.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional public comment. Is there anyone from the public desiring to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll close with Commissioner's Minute. Commissioner Ketchel?
Every year we, this county and the other 66 counties in Florida are tasked with I don't know how to say this exactly. We have bodies that need to have something done with them that are unclaimed bodies. And so our county has started this wonderful thing called Lazarus, and this year it will be on November 2nd. It's a huge funeral. We have buried almost 800 plus people at this time. We'll have another 30 plus. So that'll be November 2nd, Saturday at 1 o'clock at Beale Cemetery. It's open to the public. And the reason it's at 1 o'clock, I'm really excited about this. The Jewish community, the Hebrew community wants to join us, and their Sabbath is on Saturday. And so if we could move it to 1, they could attend and be a part of it. The rabbi is very excited. So we did move it to 1, and we have 35 different denominations, non-denoms, Catholics, Lutherans, Methodists, everything you can imagine that participate. So I invite you, it's open to the public, Beale Cemetery, November 2nd at 1 o'clock. It's a funeral like no other, and each of us would be lucky to have such a funeral.
Commissioner Goodwin?
Nothing further today. Thank you, Chairman.
Commissioner Ponder?
I hope to be lucky enough not to have a funeral anytime soon, but I will say also that it is election day, and so just I'll be working the canvassing board because apparently I drew the short straw up here. But looking forward to monitoring election returns this evening, and just a shout out to every candidate that's out there. None of them are in the room today except for Commissioner Mixon, the chairman, because they are out doing some last minute campaigning, I'm sure, but it is not an easy thing to put yourself out there. Mr. Embry's in the room. He got lucky and did not draw an opponent, but that didn't make it any less difficult to put your name out there and step into the arena. And so for every candidate that's out there, I would just say the system, our form of government requires people willing to step up and take a chance and put themselves out there and disclose the nitty gritty of their financials and allow people to poke and prod into their past and what their policy positions are. And it's not an easy thing to subject yourself to. So win, lose or draw, I certainly appreciate folks that are willing to step up and have competitive races and then participate in trying to, make the best possible policy, whether it's on a county commission or a city council board or a school board. So thanks to all of the candidates.
All right, I have nothing to add. Meeting's adjourned.